You finished seventh, I believe, in the NCAA finals last year. What are your chances this year?
Well, somebody picked us for sixth. I'm a little skeptical about that. I'd be very happy with seventh, frankly. Seventh is pretty high. There's about 5 teams, or there are at least 4 or 5 teams that just no one's going to displace. And then there are about 5 other teams that we're all just about, you could throw us up in the air and just about anyone could come down sixth. I think that's just about the way it stands right now.
Malcolm, I don't think there's any question about it. This is the trend. Very frankly, in this day and time, it's no longer practical to buy a 25 to 100 acre tract and cut it up. You must master plan the whole area in order to really get a good workable situation. So the trend is to acquire sizable blocks of acreage of 1,000 acres or more and to master plan it all under one development and one developer's control to ensure having a quality development.
Most of the communities in the Dallas area want to grow, and they welcome a developer, a sizable developer who has the staff and resources to put together the kind of planning and the ability to execute those plans, which would in fact provide the expanded economic growth that most communities everywhere want to have today.
I'm very much in favor of it, and I was instrumental in getting the Regional Police Academy formed when the police chiefs sought a facility to have central training for all police officers, and we used the Council of Governments as the vehicle to get to this point, and this was one of the first acts of the Council of Governments to install a Regional Police Academy. The Metro Squad is a good idea, and there's been a lot of talk, and Dallas has formed it, and we in Tarrant County hope to get such a thing formed and cooperate with the Dallas Metro Squad and have real cooperative attitudes in both counties.
We call it McGuire's Mecca, Jim, and the dream is still there, and I feel I can do just as much as a private citizen as I can as mayor. I have not, and I want to reiterate this point, I have not given up on the fight because I have had thousands of people come to me and ask me to reconsider my consideration of withdrawing. I can do just as much, I think, as a private citizen.
I am convinced that this Congress will not pass President Nixon's revenue sharing plan. I am very optimistic, however, that the Democratic-controlled Congress is going to support a federal program which will relieve the states financially in the field of welfare. As a matter of fact, I feel that legislation is going to be passed which will reduce the amount of state expenditures appreciably over the next 2-year period, with the federal government picking up a much higher percentage of the cost of welfare. This will result in the states receiving as much federal money under this program as it would under President Nixon's revenue sharing, but the money will go for welfare. This pleases me very much. Matter of fact, I think it places Texas in a very good position in the next 2 years.
Jim, we had to have one reason to use, and the reason at the time was we were working awful hard, and I did want to get away for about 10 days, which I did. I went to Miami. There's no reason medically or mentally or physically that I cannot be a public servant. I have documents on this. I have affidavits from doctors I've been going to doctors all my life, as you have, and I have affidavits from them saying that there's no physical or mental reason I can't be a public servant.
Efforts to get the welfare ceiling raised and to appropriate welfare money now?
Well, it's very hard to determine exactly what Congress is going to do, so I'm going to advise the governor this afternoon that I feel that we should write a one-year appropriation bill. It seems unreasonable to me for this legislature to impose $200 to $300 million more in additional taxes when they may not be needed in Texas during the next 2 years.
What leads you to believe that this will come about, this picking up of welfare burdens by the federal government?
Well, as we all know, Representative Wilbur Mills from Arkansas is chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. I met yesterday and discussed at length what Congressman Mills plans to do personally as chairman of Ways and Means. I think the action of the Ways and Means Committee is going to have a material effect on what Congress is going to do and what the ultimate outcome of congressional action is going to be. And Congressman Mills assured me that Congress was going to take this action.
Let me ask.
There was very little talk in the Capitol building today, but a very heavy vote as the House of Representatives crushed Governor Preston Smith's proposed $450 million bond issue. There was only one exchange during the debate on the measure as Representative Will Lee of Houston asked some questions of the bill's sponsor, Representative Ben Atwell of Dallas. Then Representative Atwell advised the House of Representatives the alternatives if they approve the bond issue or if they defeat the bond issue.
Are you saying that would take the total amount of money that the state would accrue in present expendable income to pay these bonds?
Well, it would depend on of course not. If you had 30-year bonds, it would depend on the length of the bond issue.
The total amount of money it's going to cost the state over the period of the term for a $450 million bond issue. I have seen some figures that lead me to believe it will cost the state $1.5 billion in actual payments over the term of the years.
Well,
can you refute this?
I just want to say that this is a method, part of a method, to not have a tax bill for this session of the legislature. As I explained to you yesterday, I will probably be back on this podium with a tax bill in some nature of something around $700 million.
The next item of business before the House, considering revenue measures, will be a proposal by Representative Atwell to increase the sales tax by 3/4 cent and possibly to tack 3 more cents onto cigarettes. This will go before his Revenue and Taxation Committee tomorrow and probably before the House floor next week. Meanwhile, on the Senate side of the Capitol building, the Senate General Investigating Committee organized itself, electing Senator Aiken of Paris as vice chairman and Senator Ike Harris of Dallas as secretary. Senator J.P. Word presided as the chairman. The committee agreed to begin immediately a probe of the state banking department and its relationship with an alleged stock fraud case. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move in Austin.
Terry, how would you explain the phenomenal play that you have been experiencing these past few games?
Well, Jerry, sounds sort of corny, but I don't really think I've been doing anything different, than I was before. They're just going in now. My line mates are playing well, as they have been most, all the year, and they're just going in for Danny, Lodbo, Mo Labby, and myself now, and it's nice.
So you do the same thing in hopes that things begin to happen?
Oh yeah, well, once in a while you have a real bad game, but I think we've been fairly consistent. But now, like I say, things are just starting to break for us.
What percentage would you like the club to play as the season progresses?
Well, it's hard to say. We've got 25 games left. I think I'd like to win at least 15 of those, and then I think we can make second place if we can do that.
Why is it that so far you've had better success as a club against the Knights than you have against the Wings?
I don't know. That's puzzled me, too. We've just seemed to come up flat for one period out of the three every game against Fort Worth, and it's cost us 3 of the times. So, it's funny, though. What you do in the regular season doesn't really matter all that much when you get to the playoffs. So if we meet them in the playoffs, I don't think there's any cause for alarm just because of these games we're losing to them.
And what about your future? How about the summer draft?
Well, Chicago can protect 14 players, so if I'm one of them, I'll be happy, and if I'm not, I hope I get drafted by one of the other NHL teams.
Would you like to play for Toronto?
Sure. I'd like to play in any NHL team. Wouldn't matter to me.
Yes, I think that's definitely true. I think that at least one of the qualifications that the people that I talked with in regard to this position were looking for was people with experience in local general government areas.
What are some of your ideas for improving cooperation?
Well, I think in one area at least that some of the things that I would like to see done is greater communication between the federal government and local government officials. Greater appreciation on the part of officials at both levels of government for the problems of those in the other level, so that these can be worked out and they can work together to solve the problems.
I don't think that he has the power to give or to take from any employee the right to contact his congressman. That's a right granted by the Constitution of the United States. The right to petition your Congress for a redress of grievances is as integral a part of the American system of government as the Constitution itself, because it's a part of the Constitution. And I said to the Postmaster General that I was sure that it had been an unwise, hastily thought-out thing, that I felt certain that in careful reconsideration he would rescind that order.
Tomorrow evening, a major organizational meeting will be held at the Haltom City Bank. It's here that the Northeast Tarrant County chapter of the American Association of Retired People will meet to form a legislative committee. The purpose of that committee will be to put pressure on legislators to pass legislation to aid in tax exemptions for the elderly. The president of the local chapter here, James Needham, explained to me today the plan that they hope to be passed.
We feel that it would be reasonable to reduce all taxes on that individual in accordance with their income. We'll say, for instance, if their taxes on their home, all combined, amounted to $300 a year when they were making $10,000, then we feel that it would be equitable for all concerned that those taxes should be reduced to $150 a year in accordance with their income.
Haltom City recently passed a homestead tax exemption plan for the elderly, and recently Mansfield became the first city in the state to institute a city tax break for the elderly. For a report on how the plan is working, we go now to Art Sinclair in Mansfield.
Some 2 years ago, the Mansfield City Commission passed an ordinance which gives a considerable tax break to the elderly in the city of Mansfield. Mary Johnston, the city secretary and tax assessor collector, explains the program and tells why that action was taken.
To lighten the tax burden of the older citizens of the city of Mansfield.
How does the plan itself work?
Well, for our people that have resided here 10 years or longer, and male 65, female 62, they can sign an ad valorem tax certificate and their property goes on the tax roll for $1, and there are approximately 100 taxpayers in this category.
And how does this affect the taxpayer? What has been their response so far?
Well, it has been accepted very well by all of our older citizens, and I think they appreciate what the city has done.
Since you give the tax break to the elderly, does this mean that someone else has to pay the bill?
No, it does not. It does not affect the tax that the other people pay.
This unique experiment here in Mansfield may be working quite well. How it will work in other cities, that remains to be seen. But this may be an indication of the future taxation procedures of other Texas cities. Art Sinclair, Channel 8 News on the Move, Mansfield.
to know that you were selected by the students of your university to represent them in all capacities, but you're denied that privilege when the time comes in the sense of something like January 1st. A lot of people might say, well, that would have happened anyway. But when you're black, sometimes you think a little differently just because you are. And that's really important.
We demand a formal and public apology from those people responsible, as well as the administration who allowed this to occur. In addition, we want this apology to be included in the 1971 edition of the Horned Frog on an entire page across from our Queen's picture.
No, I really don't. I think the Securities and Exchange Commission has had a vigorous enforcement program, at least for the past decade, if not longer. I think what we're seeing is a natural result of when you have markets go up quickly and then all of a sudden markets collapse. When stock prices are going up, people are usually happy. They see paper profits in their stocks, and they're not likely to complain. But when brokerage houses start going under and they can't get a hold of their securities, and when the issuers start going bankrupt, when the market goes down, I think that's when the investor starts to complain, when he suddenly realizes that he's been duped possibly, and that's when the evidence comes out. And of course, when the SEC gets the evidence, that's when they file their action.
They are leaving not by choice, but for some nebulous reason, they have to. We feel that some are reluctant to make sincere statements because they may jeopardize their chances of getting scholarships elsewhere. It is apparent to us that these statements made by Coach Pittman regarding the transfer of these athletes because of inadequate social life is not a whole truth. Social life at TCU for black students, as inadequate as it is presently at an all-time high. The Student Activities Committee recently granted funds for Weekly Black Student Union, which is a social gathering for black students, which each and every black student is finding very enjoyable. We're going to have a statement now by one of these athletes, Larry Dibbles, All Southwestern Conference tackle.
I'd like to comment about the social activities of the school we are at. They are inadequate, as most know, and compared to a white athlete, our activities are close to none. But this is not one of the reasons why I'm leaving here. The reason I'm leaving here is because of the change of the coaching staff and the change of the rules. I believe that it's not a serious reason to have to shave your mustache or beard or anything of this sort to play football, because after you leave a football field, you have all other kinds of activities to participate in, and your social well-being is also concerned with your appearance. My reason for leaving here is because of the new rules, and not because of the social life, because it, as most know, it's getting better, and I would like to stay and go to school here, but Coach Pittman has his rules, and he's not going to change, and I'm not going to change mine.
There's not much I haven't done, Jerry. It's by the time I was 16, I've been to 4 different jails and you name it, charges, and went to college, studied engineering, dropped out, traveled around, rode with bike gangs, the Hells Angels, the Devil's Disciples. Was involved in the world of dope, and later on with the mafia and dealing mafia drugs all over the country, and and lost my mind on drugs. Didn't know who I was. Committed an insane asylum. No hope left but just to take drugs the rest of my life.
Well, you don't really think about, your own self whenever you see a house burning with two people in the house that you know of standing right by the fire. It comes quickly to you just to automatically go up there and help those people and try to bring them out so they'll be to safety, because I didn't think about it, and I'm sure Sandy didn't, about your own lives being at stake. I just went on up there and tried my best to help them.
Would you do it again?
I probably would.
I think we only have one alternative, and that is to basically realign our priorities and go back into the supplemental budget that they do grant us and try and distribute the money as meritoriously as we possibly can.
Yes, Vern, this is Fred Wren, defending U.S. karate champion on my right, and Skipper Mullins, world's champion of a year ago, on my left. Fred, it's nice to have you back in Dallas to defend your title.
Thank you.
Do you think the competition will be stiff again this year?
Oh, yeah. It'll be very stiff.
Will you be facing maybe Skipper Mullins in the finals?
Probably, more than likely.
Well, Skipper, it's nice to have you back in U.S. competition, too. How long have you been gone?
3 years.
Fighting mostly as a professional?
Yes, sir. Just professional. Most of the blacks now that'll be here will be professionals, so I'll enjoy fighting in it.
Well, do you know all there is to know about Fred Wren as a karate champion?
No, we fought a little earlier today, and both of us changed our style of fighting a little bit, so it's going to be a whole different fight, I think.
Well, fellas, suppose I go over and join Alan Steen, who will give a commentary on what might be a preview of this year's 1971 U.S. Karate Championship. Alan, will you describe the action, please?
Okay, they're trying to get some openings. There's some good kicks that were blocked and a good punch that was blocked. Notice they use their feet as much as they do their hands. Of course, no head contact. Very good action there between the feet and the hands on both of them. And of course, they're making light contact to the body, very light, which is acceptable to the black belts. There's a kick with a punch to the back and a punch to the back of the head. And he tried to set him up for a spin kick to the end of the chest. Okay, good reverse punch. You notice they're working inside. They're trying to get inside of that kick. See? Trying to lure that kick out away. Now, there's a good side kick. Good punch to the head. Notice they're not making contact.
Hold it there, Skipper. Gentlemen, thank you for the fine demonstration. Best of luck, Skipper.
Thank you. I need to be as free.
Fred, hope you successfully defend your title. From the Allen Steen's Texas Karate Institute, Jerry Haynes for Channel 8 Sports.